Tonight, we will be talking about all the ways you can polish your manuscript before you send it off to your editor. I'm going to be covering some things that should be kind of like red flags to you before you ship it out. Whether you deal with an editor or not, that is your choice, but I highly recommend it. No AI, no app, no software, no website can take the place of a human editor. Never forget that. But we will be talking about things that you can look out for to help your editor keep the time to a minimum, which will end up saving you money and give you a much more professional and better written manuscript. I will be showing you ways that Fictionary can shortcut some of these red flags I'm talking about so that you're not figuring out things by hand with an abacus and a slide rule all on your own. Fictionary takes care of it for you. I am Nancy Basile. I am a mystery author. I've published 5 books so far, self-published. I do use an editor and I pay a professional cover designer and all the things that a traditional publishing house would do. I just do it myself. So I have a question for you before we jump into these red flags for your manuscript. What is your biggest hurdle when it comes to writing a book? What is it? What's keeping you from finishing your book or just getting started? I want you to tell me in the comments or in the chat what your biggest hurdle is. And what we're going to start with, however, is not the manuscript insights. It is the word count per scene. And I'm sure you're saying to yourself, what? Why are we talking about the word count per scene? I just need to know how many words I've written today or how many words are in my whole book. I don't need word count per scene. Let me tell you why it's a great idea after you finish a scene or a chapter to head over to a word counter. Your counter of choice. It can be word counts, the number of words in a chapter or in a highlight. There are a gazillion word counters out there that you can copy and paste into to check to see how many words are in each of your scenes. Now, you can see here, this one has 1500, 1261, 1800, et cetera, et cetera. Why do I care about that? Well, after I finish a rough draft and I upload it here into Fictionary and I check this out, I have discovered a couple of times places where I had an extraordinary amount of words in scenes that were not important. And I realized that wasn't great. If I'm going to have, let's see, if I'm going to have, for instance, 1,793 words in a chapter, it better be important. And this scene 9, chapter 9, is very important. It's when my main character, Detective Shelby Reed, is at a family get-together. And it tells you a lot about Shelby and her past and her family dynamics, and maybe a little bit about why she is the way she is. However, I would not want a scene where people are just summarizing maybe the mystery to this point. I wouldn't want a scene like that to have a ton of words. Or maybe I noticed that a scene is double what all of the other scenes were. There is a chapter in here that in my first draft was twice as long as the other chapters. And I hadn't realized it was that long. It was something like 3,500 words. And when I saw it on this bar graph, I thought, oh, I need to do something about that, because here's my reader zipping along at a certain pace with a certain length of scene, certain length of chapter, and suddenly they get to a chapter that's twice as long as all the other chapters. And it wasn't a terribly important scene. So I realized I needed to somehow break that up into 2 different chapters, or take pieces of that chapter and put them in other existing chapters, because it was a big doorstop right there, smack in the middle of my book. And that is why this, to me, this word count is a red flag. And again, you can do this yourself just by copying and pasting into a word counter, or highlighting something in Word and counting the words, however you want to do it. I think Google Docs also counts words, but here Fictionary can just show you in one fell swoop, in one visual in this bar graph. And I really, really appreciate that. Thank you all so much for joining me for this live video. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And if you're watching this on replay, thank you for sticking around to the end. And before you go, make sure that you subscribe to the channel to get more writing advice and book reviews. I'd love to see you under those subscriber numbers. And again, I sincerely appreciate you for being here. If you have any questions about any of those red flags, how to figure them out, or any of the apps I've talked about, just let me know and I'll get back to you.